Pixel.
The Rise of Iron has been a beacon of hope in the distance of Destiny content since it was first announced back in June. With the content drought in Destiny in full swing, this expansion was hoped for by the community to be the hero that Gotham deserves, and to bring a ton of new content for players to enjoy for the many months to come. Now that Rise of Iron has arrived, is it indeed the content punch to the gut that this game has thoroughly needed for a while now? The short answer is, well, yes and no. Before I jump into the review, I think it's important to disclose that I have yet to play the new raid that comes with the Rise of Iron. As of writing and recording this, the raid has yet to be released, therefore I have not had the chance to play it. The background footage is also just from the first mission or two, as I don't want to show off too much as to avoid spoilers. But I also wanted to show off some of the new content for those looking to see some of what they will be getting if they decide to purchase the Rise of Iron. Alright, let's jump in. The TLDR version of this review is that, imagine, if you will, that you are incredibly dehydrated and you need a drink of water as of yesterday. Rise of Iron is a crisp and delicious gulp that costs about as much as the entire bottle of water you were hoping you were getting. It's a ton of fun and a blast to play through while it lasts. But just as you are really getting into all the new and exciting content to sink your teeth into, you realize that you've reached the bottom of the bottle. The Rise of Iron is great. All the time I have spent with it I've really thoroughly enjoyed. But the campaign was over in the blink of an eye. And a handful of hours after that I realized I had largely experienced everything that the Rise of Iron had to offer. And at $30 American, that's pretty disappointing. Let's start with the new story. The 5 or so campaign missions were fun enough while they lasted. They still feel like typical Destiny missions though, which at this point I'm starting to wonder if that's a good thing or not. While they are probably the best story missions Bungie has put into Destiny at this point, especially when compared to those from vanilla, they're still missing that certain continuity and progression that I've come to love and expect from a Bungie title. They aren't bad by any means, and I did enjoy my time playing through them. There are just certain aspects of it that makes the story feel forced and disconnected. I won't go into too much detail as to avoid entering spoiler territory, but the story just felt rushed for the first 90%, got really good, and then just kinda ended. Maybe I'm being too critical, but I think the story would have gone over better by simply elaborating a bit more. Give us more time against our enemy. Give us more time to develop the dichotomy between us and Siva. Let the character become invested firsthand, rather than just being told a story and being expected to care just because you heard about it. Most of the story here is experienced through exposition rather than first-hand experience. Go here, shoot this, voiceover explaining why this matters, mission ends, repeat. It just could have been better. The premise was there, and it could have been incredibly interesting, but the storytelling faltered and just kinda left me saying, is that it? Destiny's gameplay is top-notch, so the missions were fun to play through, but some motivation other than, these guys are bad and it's fun to shoot them in the head, would have been nice. So, about Siva. Bungie boasts them as a new enemy faction, and while that is technically true, they're in all actuality just a variant of the Fallen. The game even refers to them as Fallen, and they count as Fallen kills for bounties and weapon progressions. Not only that, but they just kind of feel like a new enemy type within the Fallen umbrella. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, but they are far from a new enemy type in my opinion. Similarly to how the Taken work, the Siva Fallen are just the same enemies you've been fighting since vanilla Destiny, but with a minor twist. This could be a positive or a negative based on your own personal preferences, and honestly, I'm undecided. While the Siva Fallen are a fine enemy type, it would have been nice if they had varied the formula a bit more with them, or more preferably, added an actual new enemy type to fight. At the end of the day, Siva Vandals still act like Vandals, Siva Dregs act like Dregs, and Siva Captains like Captains. Part of me feels like I should give them a break considering it was a small team working on the Rise of Iron, but then again, I spent $30 on this, so I feel a certain quality bar of content should be upheld. The new strike, the Wretched Eye, is probably what you'd expect from a Destiny strike, sans for the final boss encounter. It's your typical clear one room and move on to the next ordeal until you reach the final boss. There is nothing about the first 90% of the strike that will blow your mind in terms of how new or incredible the concept is, but it knows what it is and it does what it does really well. The final encounter, on the other hand, is hands down the most interesting aspect of the new strike, and I honestly really enjoyed it. I won't go into details as to avoid spoilers for those who want to experience it for themselves firsthand, but it's a different style of boss encounter than I think most people are used to. It's a well-made strike, and I think that fans of the PvE side of Destiny will really enjoy it. As for the other two revised strikes, they're actually really well done. They're still the same strikes you've played before, but much like the Siva variants of the Fallen, there are some subtle changes in place to try and help keep them fresh for veteran players. The Sepic's Perfected Strike in particular adds an interesting raid light mechanic, where Sepic becomes invulnerable to all damage until blasted by a particular pickup that you get during the fight that matches the color of its own shields. So, for example, if Sepix becomes invulnerable with a purple shield, you must use the Void dropped pickup to blast its shields off to continue to do damage. Whether or not changes like this make the strikes feel different enough for veteran players to warrant multiple playthroughs is going to differ from player to player. Personally, I'm always a proponent for new content, so I would have preferred new strikes over revised strikes, but c'est la vie. If you're a Crucible player, you may be actually pleasantly surprised with this release, especially if you play on PlayStation 4, as you will have 4 new battlegrounds to shoot ghost bullets at each other on. And I've gotta say, the maps are pretty damn good. Unfortunately though, if you're an Xbox player, you only get 3 new battlegrounds to run around on. Thanks, Bungo. The settings are varied as well as the gameplay styles to expect on each differing map. Some of them are small and encourage hand cannons and shotguns, while others are much larger and open and encourage hand cannons and shotguns. You can also use other long-range weapons on these maps as well, which is a pretty nice addition. All sarcasm and jokes aside, I really enjoy these new maps. Bungie has always had a reputation for making some pretty solid battlegrounds to shoot your friends on. And while I think that everyone can agree that not every map they've made has been a hit, these are definitely some of the better battlegrounds they've released for Destiny, at least in my opinion. Yellowhorn is back! With Rise of Iron, the Yellowhorn returns, as well as the addition of a plethora of new exotic weapons and gear, quest-specific loot, new vendor weapons, relics, and cosmetic items. Now before I hear this down in the comments, I am pronouncing Yellowhorn correctly. It is pronounced Yellowhorn, not Gallahorn, or Gajalahorn, or Galalahorn, whatever. I don't even care that freaking Dinklebot pronounces it as Gallahorn in the game. It's Yellowhorn, which originates from Scandinavian mythology, it's Heimdall's horn, and it is pronounced Yellowhorn. Okay? We cool? Great! Let's get back on topic. The new Rise of Iron gear is great. The new exotic weapons are very fun to use, especially the exotic Kvastov, which is my baby and may be my favorite auto rifle in Destiny right now. It just looks so beautiful. The new artifacts are a great addition as well, adding new and interesting tweaks to gameplay that I am sure will start to rear their ugly heads once the community finds some nasty, powerful combinations of artifacts, weapons, classes, and gear. I'm pretty sure that even those who don't purchase the Rise of Iron will have the ability to get their hands on some of the new gear through weapons vendors, but I'm not 100% sure on that as I don't have any way to check myself. The final new item that I was pleasantly surprised about was the addition of the Rise of Iron record book. It is essentially a variety of challenges for players to complete as they work their way through the Rise of Iron. As you complete each challenge, you will unlock various rewards, from gear and weapons, to ghosts and ships, to emblems and shaders. It's an unimportant but nice group of objectives for players to work their way through once they've completed the storyline, to keep themselves busy with goals to achieve and some loot to receive. At the end of the day, I think the biggest problem with the Rise of Iron is its price. I completed the entire storyline as well as almost all post-storyline quests, the new strike, the 2 revised strikes, 2 of the exotic weapons quests, a match or 2 on each of the new Crucible maps, 20 plus rounds in the Archon's Forge, completed 20% of the Rise of Iron record book, and explored nearly every new area in the Plaguelands patrol space, all within the first day and a half of playing the expansion. The content that is there is great, and I enjoyed and will continue to enjoy my time with the Rise of Iron, especially when the new raid is released on Friday. But I can't help but feel that I gravely overpaid for this content. Rise of Iron costs $30, while also acquiring the base game as well as all previous expansions. And that can add up to be a pretty penny. I know that Bungie has released new bundles for newcomers to Destiny that can bring the cost down considerably. But for early adopters like myself, this price is adding up. Rise of Iron costs half the price of that of original Destiny, and comes with only like a fourth of the content. If Rise of Iron was priced at $15-20 at the most, I would have no issues recommending this to those who are a fan of Destiny and are looking for some new content to drag them back in. But for $30, I just have a hard time making that recommendation. If you were looking for Rise of Iron to be the expansion that adds hundreds of hours of new content for you to play through for the months to come, you're probably not going to find that here. What you will find is a much smaller batch of content that is a bunch of fun to play through, but at a price tag that is very, very steep. How you value your time, your money, and how much love you have for this game will dictate whether or not the Rise of Iron is right for you. And I think it's a choice you'll have to make on an individual basis. If you want my personal opinion though, I think the price is just too steep, which is a damn shame because the content that is there is really good. So what do you guys think? Have you purchased the Rise of Iron? Was it worth the price for you? Shout it down in the comments below and let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. I hope it was helpful for you and provided the information you needed to make your choice as to whether or not to buy this expansion. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them down below and I will try to answer as many of them as I can. I've been the Grunting Pixel and I will see you guys in the next video. And a handful of Zao. Similarly, the final encounter, on the other hand, is hands down the most interesting aspect of the spike? Far out on a log, man. But much like the Siva variants of Fallen, there are some subtle changes in place to try to help and keep them fresh for There are some subtle changes in place to try and help keep them fresh for veteran players. That's not a hard sentence. Come on, brain, you asshole. The Sepic's Perfected Strike if you're a Crucible player, you may actually be fucking shit. The final new item that I was pleasantly surprised about was the addition of the fucking poops into poopy poops. I know that Bungie has released bundles for newcomers to Destiny that can bring the Christ down. It can bring Christ down from heaven. They will pull him back down to the face of this fucking earth. God damn it.